The soft hum of plasma engines pulsed through the observation deck as Lieutenant Nathan Shaw studied the approaching Stellaris ships. Their iridescent hulls caught Earth's sunlight, creating rainbow cascades that would have been beautiful if they weren't so alien. After 15 years of space combat experience, Nathan had learned that beauty often hid danger. Quite a sight, isn't they? Lieutenant Commander Park joined him at the window, her dark eyes fixed on the approaching vessels. Hard to believe we're about to guard the heir to the most powerful empire in known space. Nathan nodded, keeping his expression neutral. The assignment had come as a surprise to everyone in Earth Defense Force. The Stellaris Empire, with their reality-bending technology and mastery over physics, hardly needed human protection. Yet Princess Valara had specifically requested EDF officers for her security detail during her stay on Earth. "Have you reviewed the briefing files?" Park asked, though she already knew the answer. Nathan's thoroughness was legendary in the Special Operations Division. "Multiple times," he replied, watching as the royal vessel began its descent through Earth's atmosphere. "Their technology is leagues beyond ours, their guards can literally bend space, and their princess is considered the most well-protected being in the galaxy." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "Which makes me wonder why they want us involved at all." The massive ship settled onto the landing pad with impossible grace, its pearlescent surface rippling like liquid metal. Nathan's hand instinctively moved closer to his sidearm, a simple projectile weapon that probably seemed prehistoric to the Stellaris. But simple meant reliable, and reliable meant survival. General Santos's voice crackled through their earpieces. "All units in position. Remember, this protection detail is crucial to our alliance. Stay alert, stay professional." The ship's hull seemed to part like water, creating an entrance where solid metal had been moments before. The Royal Guard emerged first, beings that looked almost human until you noticed how light seemed to bend around them, their crystalline armor pulsing with internal energy. Then came Princess Valara. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her form wrapped in what appeared to be captured starlight. Her skin held an opalescent quality that shifted with each movement, and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern surveyed the welcoming committee with unnerving intelligence. But it was the subtle tension in her movements that caught Nathan's attention, a nearly imperceptible rigidity that his years of combat experience recognized instantly. The princess was afraid. As formal introductions began, Nathan maintained his professional demeanor while his mind raced through possibilities. The Stellaris Guard's formation, while impressive, left 3 distinct blind spots in their defense pattern. For a species that had mastered interstellar travel millennia ago, such an oversight was impossible unless it was intentional. "Lieutenant Shaw," the princess's voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate with something deep in his chest. "Your combat record is quite remarkable. Particularly your handling of the Centauri pirates incident." Nathan bowed respectfully, hiding his surprise at being addressed directly. "You honor me, Your Highness. Though I suspect my achievements would seem modest compared to your empire's capabilities." A ripple passed through her luminescent dress. "Amusement? Or something else? Capabilities can become limitations, Lieutenant. Sometimes the ancient ways prove more effective than the most advanced solutions." Before Nathan could process the meaning behind her words, General Santos began directing the delegation toward their transport vehicles. As Nathan took his position in the security detail, he noticed something flicker in the darkening sky, like a star blinking out of existence for just a moment. In his experience, there was no such thing as coincidence, especially when dealing with beings who could manipulate the fabric of reality. Whatever game was being played, Nathan intended to be ready for it. Humans might be newcomers to the galactic stage, but they had millennia of experience expecting the unexpected. And sometimes, that was the greatest advantage of all. The Stellaris embassy towered above New Shanghai's skyline like a frozen waterfall of light and crystal. Nathan stood at his post on the 47th floor, watching as streams of hover traffic wove between the city's gleaming spires. 3 days had passed since the princess's arrival, and each day had only deepened his suspicions. The royal guards maintained their peculiar formation with its deliberate blind spots. Princess Valara continued to exhibit subtle signs of tension whenever certain members of her court approached. And most tellingly, the strange atmospheric disturbances, like invisible ships moving through the sky, had increased in frequency. Perimeter scan complete, Park's voice came through his earpiece. All clear on the outer rings. Nathan acknowledged with a tap, but his attention was fixed on a diplomatic aide who had just entered the princess's private chambers. The aide's movements were perfect, his posture exactly what protocol demanded, yet something felt wrong. After years of combat, Nathan had learned to trust his instincts. Running a level 2 security sweep, he announced, activating his tablet. The simple Earth device was considered primitive by Stellaris standards, but that was precisely why Nathan trusted it. Their advanced systems could be hacked or fooled, his couldn't. The scan revealed nothing unusual, which itself was unusual. Every living being gave off some form of energy signature, yet the aid registered as completely neutral. Either Stellaris technology had achieved perfect energy masking, or... A muffled sound from the princess's chambers snapped Nathan to attention. Without hesitation, he moved toward the door, weapon drawn. The 2 Stellaris guards positioned there turned their four-eyed gazes toward him. "This area is restricted," one stated, their crystalline armor pulsing with warning lights. "Security override protocol," Nathan replied, using the codes he'd memorized. Level 2 anomaly detected. The guards exchanged looks but didn't move. Their hesitation confirmed Nathan's suspicions, they were part of whatever was happening. Breaking protocol, he slammed his palm against the emergency override panel. The door slid open. Inside, he found Princess Valara backed against a wall, her 4 eyes wide with alarm. The aide stood before her, his form shifting and rippling like a heat mirage. As Nathan watched, the aide's perfect diplomatic appearance melted away, revealing a being composed of writhing shadows and metallic segments. "Assassin!" Nathan shouted, but the word was barely out of his mouth before the creature moved. It was impossibly fast, its form seeming to bend space itself as it lunged toward the princess. The Stellaris guards outside made no move to help. Nathan didn't hesitate. His primitive projectile weapon barked 3 times. The bullets, simple lead and copper, weren't affected by the creature's space-bending abilities. They tore through its shifting form, spraying the wall with something that looked like liquid mercury. The assassin screamed, a sound that existed somewhere between electronic feedback and crystalline fracture. It whirled toward Nathan, its form reorganizing around the wounds. Tendrils of shadow and metal lashed out, faster than any human could dodge. But Nathan didn't try to dodge. Instead, he charged forward, dropping his shoulder and tackling the creature with pure physical force. The assassin, prepared for energy weapons or technological countermeasures, was caught completely off guard by such a primitive attack. They crashed through a decorative crystal partition, sending rainbow-hued shards scattering across the floor. Nathan rolled clear, coming up in a defensive stance between the assassin and the princess. Blood trickled from cuts on his face, but he barely noticed. "Your Highness," he called out, never taking his eyes off the wounded creature. "The emergency transport pad. Now." "The guards," she began. "Are compromised," Nathan finished. "Trust me. Please." Perhaps it was his tone, or perhaps she had already known her guards couldn't be trusted. Either way, she moved toward the transport pad, a circular platform that could teleport her to safety in an instant. The assassin launched another attack, its form splitting into multiple writhing tendrils. Nathan emptied his magazine into the center mass, giving the princess time to reach the pad. But when she activated it, nothing happened. "The system's been sabotaged," she announced, her melodic voice tight with tension. Nathan backed toward her, reloading with practiced efficiency. Then we do this the human way. He reached for his backup weapon, a simple grappling gun that the Stellaris had probably dismissed as decorative. How much do you trust me, Your Highness? More than my own guards, apparently, she replied, those 4 eyes fixed on him with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. The assassin was reforming, its liquid metal body pulling together into something even more monstrous. Outside, they could hear boots on crystal, more guards approaching, and Nathan doubted they were friendly. Then hold on tight, he said, wrapping one arm around her waist. And remember, sometimes primitive works best. He fired the grappling hook through the window, shattering the supposedly unbreakable crystal. As guards burst through the door, Nathan and the princess leapt into open air, 47 floors above the streets of New Shanghai. The assassin's scream of rage followed them down, but Nathan was already plotting their trajectory, using the building's artistic curves to guide their descent. As they swung through the glittering canyon of skyscrapers, Princess Valara clung to him, her ethereal form surprisingly solid. You're either brilliant or insane, she shouted over the wind. Nathan allowed himself a grim smile. In my experience, Your Highness, the two often go hand in hand. Above them, the embassy's perfect crystal facade began to crack and splinter as something massive pursued them. The real battle was just beginning, but Nathan had confirmed 2 vital things: the conspiracy against the princess ran deep within her own court, and their advanced technology could be beaten with simple human ingenuity. Now they just had to survive long enough to use that knowledge. The maintenance tunnels beneath New Shanghai were a maze of pipes and forgotten infrastructure, far removed from the gleaming crystal towers above. Nathan led Princess Valara through the darkness, their footsteps echoing off metal walls that hadn't seen maintenance crews in decades. His tactical flashlight cast long shadows ahead of them, while drops of water from ancient pipes created a constant, hollow rhythm. Your city has layers, Valara observed, her luminescent skin providing a soft glow in the darkness. Like a living organism. Not exactly the luxury you're used to, Nathan replied, checking his tablet's map. The device was operating in offline mode, anything connected to the network could be tracked. But sometimes the old ways are the safest. They had managed to escape the initial pursuit by using the city's lower levels. The assassins, with their advanced technology, hadn't thought to look in such primitive surroundings. But Nathan knew their advantage wouldn't last long. You're wounded, Valara said suddenly, her 4 eyes focusing on the cuts on his face and arms from their crash through the crystal window. It's nothing. Nathan kept moving, checking each intersection before proceeding. We need to reach the emergency bunker. Lieutenant Commander Park has a safe house. Stop. Valara's voice carried that same harmonic quality that seemed to resonate in his chest, but now there was an edge of command to it. Let me help you. Before he could protest, she placed her hand near one of the deeper cuts on his arm. Her skin began to glow brighter, and Nathan felt a warm tingling sensation. When she pulled away, the wound had closed completely. That's impressive, he managed, fighting to maintain his professional demeanor. A simple cellular manipulation, she replied, though her voice betrayed a slight strain. Though I must admit, human biology is intriguingly complex. A distant rumble interrupted the moment. Nathan's tablet showed increasing seismic activity above them, but it wasn't natural. They were being hunted. They're using ground-penetrating sensors, Valara explained, her expression grim. The assassins are part of a faction within my court called the Shadow Collective. They believe the Stellaris Empire has become weak through peace. And killing you would trigger what? A civil war? Worse. She moved closer to him in the darkness. They want to use my death to justify a preemptive strike against Earth. Your planet's unpredictability frightens them. Nathan processed this information as they continued through the tunnels. The pieces were starting to fit together, her request for human guards, the deliberately flawed security formations, the use of an assassin that could be stopped by primitive weapons. "You knew they were coming," he said. "It wasn't a question." "I suspected." Violara's 4 eyes met his gaze. "But I couldn't trust my own people. The Shadow Collective has infiltrated every level of our society. I needed someone different. Someone who would see what they couldn't conceive of hiding." Another rumble, closer this time. Dust fell from the ceiling as something massive moved through the streets above. Nathan checked his ammunition, 2 magazines left for his sidearm, 1 shot remaining in the grappling gun. "The bunker is still 10 minutes away," he said, studying the tablet. "But we won't make it if they keep using those sensors." He looked up at Violara, an idea forming. "Your healing ability, you said it was cellular manipulation?" She nodded. "A basic application of bioresonance technology. Could you use it to mask our biological signatures? Make us read as something else to their sensors?" Violara's eyes widened slightly. "That's not how the technology is meant to be used. But theoretically." She paused, considering. "It would be dangerous. A miscalculation could disrupt our cellular integrity." "More dangerous than the assassins?" A sound like crystal chimes filled the tunnel, her species' version of laughter. "You humans have a remarkable way of putting things in perspective." She moved closer, placing one hand on his chest and the other on her own. "Hold still. This will feel unusual." The warm tingling sensation returned, but this time it spread throughout Nathan's entire body. For a moment, his vision blurred, and he felt like he was floating. When the sensation passed, nothing seemed different, but the rumbling above had stopped. "It worked," Violara whispered, though she seemed unsteady on her feet. "To their sensors, we now appear as common maintenance drones." Nathan caught her arm as she swayed. "Are you all right? The process is taxing. I've never attempted it on a different species before." She straightened, but didn't pull away from his support. "We should move quickly. I cannot maintain this effect indefinitely." They pressed on through the tunnels, now moving faster without fear of detection. Nathan found himself acutely aware of the princess's presence beside him, of how her luminescence seemed to pulse in time with her breathing. She had trusted him with her life, and now he literally carried her cellular signature within him. The walls around them shuddered again, but this time it wasn't from pursuit. Warning lights began flashing in the maintenance tunnels, ancient systems coming to life. "Flood warning," Nathan read from his tablet. "They're flooding the tunnels. Trying to flush us out." Violara's glow dimmed slightly. "I don't have the strength to maintain our camouflage if we have to swim." "We won't be swimming." Nathan pulled out his grappling gun with its single remaining shot. Above them, a maintenance shaft led up toward the street level. It would put them right in the open, but with the tunnels flooding, they had no choice. "Remember what I said about primitive solutions?" A wave of water rushed around the corner behind them as Nathan fired the grappling hook. Violara wrapped her arms around him just as the flood reached their position. The cable went taut, pulling them up into the shaft as water roared below. "Your Highness," Nathan said as they ascended. "When we get out of this, we need to have a long talk about what else you're not telling me." "When we get out of this," she replied, her voice carrying that musical note of amusement again, "I think you can call me Violara." The shaft's exit was just ahead, leading back to the surface where danger certainly waited. But as they climbed, Nathan realized something had changed between them. Technology and biology, human and alien, primitive and advanced, the lines were starting to blur. And somewhere in that blurring, something new was taking shape. Something neither of them had expected to find in the darkness beneath New Shanghai. The maintenance shaft erupted onto street level in a burst of steam and grinding metal. Nathan pulled himself and Violara clear just as another surge of water rushed up behind them. The night air was thick with humidity, and New Shanghai's towers stretched above them like luminous giants. "The biomasking is failing," Violara said, her natural glow flickering like a candle in wind. "I can't maintain it any longer." Nathan helped her to her feet, scanning their surroundings. They had emerged in one of the city's older districts, where traditional architecture mixed with modern innovations. Ancient stone dragons watched from rooftops while quantum advertising displays painted the streets in shifting colors. "Park's safehouse is 3 blocks east," he said, checking his tablet one last time before the battery died. "If we can." A piercing tone cut through the air, and both of them instinctively ducked as something whistled overhead. The building behind them erupted in a shower of molecular disassembly, its structure breaking down into component atoms. "Void weapons," Violara breathed, her 4 eyes wide. "They're not even trying to be subtle anymore." 5 figures emerged from the swirling mist ahead, their forms rippling with the same shadow metal configuration as the first assassin. Behind them, a larger shape took form, a combat walker that seemed to bend reality around itself, each step distorting the space it moved through. "Lieutenant Shaw," a voice echoed from the walker, carrying harmonics that made Nathan's teeth ache. "Your interference in Stellaris affairs ends now. Hand over the princess, and you may yet survive this night." Nathan checked his sidearm, 2 magazines left, useless against the walker's void shields. The grappling gun was empty. His combat knife, while well-made, wouldn't do much against beings made of living metal and shadow. "Any suggestions?" he asked Violara quietly. "Their void technology is designed to break down matter at the molecular level," she replied, her voice equally low. "But it requires intense concentration and energy. They can't maintain it indefinitely. So we need to make them waste their shots." Nathan's mind raced through possibilities. The old district's architecture wasn't just decorative, many of the buildings still maintained their original structural integrity, independent of modern reinforcement. "Nathan," Violara touched his arm, her skin cool against his. "There's something else you should know. The Shadow Collective, they're not just political revolutionaries. They're evolutionary purists. They believe contact with other species, especially humans, is contaminating our genetic destiny. And your interest in human protection details probably didn't help that perception," Nathan added, beginning to understand. The way she looked at him confirmed his suspicion. This wasn't just about politics, it was about what she represented, about the future she envisioned for her people. Another void blast streaked toward them. Nathan pulled Violara behind a stone pillar as the attack reduced a nearby wall to its atomic components. The combat walker advanced, its reality-bending field warping the very air. "Your Highness," the voice boomed again. "Your father's policies of integration and cooperation make us weak. The humans' primitive interference tonight proves our point. Come with us, and we will restore the Stellaris Empire to its pure, singular glory." Violara straightened, her luminescence growing stronger. "You speak of purity," she called out, her voice carrying royal authority, "but look at yourselves. You've become something neither mechanical nor organic. You've betrayed everything our people stand for in the name of preserving it." The assassins moved forward in perfect formation, their liquid metal forms rippling with lethal purpose. The walker raised its main weapon, void energy gathering at its barrel. "Now would be a good time for a plan," Violara whispered. Nathan smiled grimly. "Remember what you said about human biology being intriguingly complex?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, a simple remote detonator. Turns out human engineering can be the same way. During their journey through the maintenance tunnels, he had been laying charges, old-fashioned explosives that wouldn't register on advanced sensors looking for energy signatures. The charges weren't powerful enough to damage the assassins directly, but that wasn't the plan. "The buildings here," he explained quickly, "they're held up by basic physics. No quantum reinforcement, no molecular stabilizers. Just stone, steel, and gravity. Violara's eyes widened as she understood. Their void weapons. We'll be too busy breaking down falling buildings to break down us. He handed her the detonator. Care to do the honors? A blast of void energy vaporized their cover, forcing them into the open. The walker loomed over them, its reality-distorting field making Nathan's vision blur. The assassins raised their weapons for a synchronized attack. Surrender, the walker's pilot demanded, or be reduced to base atoms. Violara's response was to press the detonator. The explosions weren't particularly dramatic by modern standards, just enough force to compromise key structural points in the surrounding buildings. But in the old district, that was all it took. Tons of stone and steel, held up by nothing more than classical physics, began to fall. The assassins immediately switched targets, their void weapons firing rapidly to disintegrate the falling debris before it could crush them. The walker's pilot, faced with multiple threats from above, had to divide his weapon's energy between several targets. "Run," Nathan said, grabbing Violara's hand. They sprinted through the chaos as reality-warping energy beams crisscrossed overhead, reducing falling architecture to clouds of component atoms. But there was too much debris, coming from too many angles. An enormous section of stone dragon crashed through the walker's distortion field, smashing into its leg assemblies. The machine staggered, its void weapons beam going wide and carving a glowing path through New Shanghai's skyline. Two of the assassins were caught under a collapsing wall, their liquid metal forms splashing apart. Another fired desperately at a falling I-beam, but the void energy only partially disassembled it. The remaining mass struck with enough kinetic force to shatter the assassin's cohesion. "Primitive enough for you?" Nathan called as they ran. Violara's laughter chimed like crystal bells. "Brilliantly primitive. But we're not clear yet." The warning came too late. The walker, though damaged, managed one final shot. The void beam struck the ground beneath them, molecular disassembly spreading like cracks in ice. Nathan felt the street giving way and pushed Violara clear, but there was no time to save himself. The ground dissolved beneath his feet, and he fell into crackling void energy. His world became pain and dissolving reality. The last thing he saw was Violara reaching for him, her face twisted in horror, her glow blazing like a star. Then everything went black. But darkness wasn't the end. Something caught him, not a physical grip, but a field of pure energy that pulled at every cell in his body. He felt warmth spreading through him, familiar yet different from before. Violara wasn't just trying to heal him this time. She was rewriting the void weapon's effects at the molecular level, using her biomanipulation abilities in a way they were never intended. Nathan felt his consciousness returning as his cells stabilized, but he could sense the tremendous effort it was costing her. "Hold on," her voice echoed in his mind. "Just hold on, Nathan. I won't let you fall." As his vision cleared, he realized they were suspended in a sphere of pure energy, Violara's power made visible. Below them, the void-damaged street was a crater of swirling quantum uncertainty. Above, the walker's pilot was preparing another shot. But something had changed. The bioresonance link between them had become something more, something neither human science nor Stellaris technology had anticipated. Nathan could feel Violara's strength flowing into him, and somehow, he knew exactly what they needed to do. Together, they reached for the swirling quantum energies below them. Human intuition merged with Stellaris power, primitive determination with advanced science. The void energy responded, twisting upward like a living thing. The walker's pilot fired, but it was too late. The combined energy of their shared consciousness redirected the void beam back into the walker's reality distortion field. For a moment, the machine stood frozen in a cascade of conflicting physics. Then it collapsed in on itself, crushed by the weight of its own warped space. They descended slowly to solid ground as Vailara's energy sphere dissipated. She stumbled, drained by the unprecedented effort, and Nathan caught her. For a moment, they stood in the ruins of the old district, holding each other as steam rose from the quantum-scarred streets. "I think," Vailara said softly, "we've discovered something my people never imagined possible." Nathan looked at her, still feeling echoes of their connection. A human and a Stellaris, sharing consciousness? No. She touched his face gently. Two beings from different worlds, proving that evolution's greatest strength isn't purity, it's adaptation. Change. Connection. Above them, emergency vehicles were approaching. The night's chaos had finally drawn official attention. But as Nathan held the princess who had become something more than just his charge, he knew the real crisis wasn't over. The Shadow Collective had failed tonight, but they wouldn't stop. What had begun as a simple protection detail had become something far more important, a fight for the future of both their species. And somehow, standing in the quantum-lit ruins with Vailara, Nathan knew they would face that future together. Dawn broke over New Shanghai, painting the quantum-scarred streets in shades of gold and rose. From the secure command center beneath the Earth Defense Force headquarters, Nathan watched holographic displays track Shadow Collective movements across the sector. Each red dot represented a confirmed cell of the purist faction, and there were far too many for comfort. "They're rallying their forces," Lieutenant Commander Park said, manipulating the display to show ship movements. The attack on the princess was just the beginning. Nathan nodded, feeling the lingering resonance of his connection with Vailara. The events of the night had changed something fundamental between them, created a bond that neither human science nor Stellaris technology could fully explain. Even now, several floors away in the medical bay, he could sense her presence like a warm glow at the edge of his consciousness. "The Shadow Collective's leadership will be meeting in 6 hours," he said, pointing to a cluster of signatures near Jupiter's orbit. "They're planning to use the chaos here to justify a full military intervention. If they succeed in painting Earth as a threat, it would mean war," Park finished. "And not just with Earth. The Collective would use it to seize control of the Empire itself." The door slid open, and Vailara entered. She had recovered her strength, her natural luminescence restored to its full brilliance. The medical staff had been amazed by her rapid healing, but they didn't understand the true source of her recovery, the same connection that had allowed them to survive the void weapon's effects. "My father has received my report," she announced, her 4 eyes scanning the tactical displays. "The Royal Fleet is mobilizing, but they won't reach Earth space before the Collective makes their move." Nathan turned to face her, still struck by how her presence seemed to resonate with something deep inside him. "Then we'll have to stop them before they can start a war." "We?" Park raised an eyebrow. "With all due respect, Lieutenant, this is far beyond a simple protection detail now. The Collective has capital ships, void weapons, and who knows what other advanced technology. They also have a critical weakness," Vailara said, moving to stand beside Nathan. Their proximity made the resonance stronger, and he could sense her thoughts aligning with his. "They believe absolutely in their superiority. They cannot conceive of being defeated by what they consider lesser beings." Nathan smiled grimly. "Just like they couldn't conceive of their assassins being beaten by primitive bullets and basic demolition charges." "Exactly." Vailara's hand found his, and their shared consciousness expanded. Through their connection, he could see her plan taking shape. "And there's something else they haven't considered. Something unprecedented." Park looked between them, noticing the subtle glow that seemed to emanate from their joined hands. "The bioresonance link? But that's just temporary technology, isn't it?" "It was supposed to be," Vailara said softly. "But combined with human neural patterns, it's become something new. Something that could change everything about how our species interact." Nathan squeezed her hand gently. "Which is exactly why the Collective fears it. They're not just fighting against Earth, they're fighting against the very idea of change, of evolution through connection rather than isolation. Through their link, he could feel her agreement, her determination. The Shadow Collective had thought to use her death to preserve their idea of purity. Instead, they had catalyzed exactly the kind of transformation they feared most. "We have 6 hours," Nathan said, turning back to the tactical display. "We'll need a ship, one without advanced targeting systems that they can hack. Something primitive enough to get close." Park's eyes widened. "You're not serious." "The prototype?" "The Earthship Intrepid," Nathan confirmed. "Minimal quantum tech, basic fusion drive, and enough armor to survive a few void weapon hits. Not elegant, but sometimes primitive works best," Valara finished, her mental touch carrying a note of affection. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. The Intrepid was a hybrid of human and alien technology, considered too crude for regular service but perfect for their needs. Its systems were simple enough to resist quantum interference while maintaining enough power to reach the Collective's gathering point. As they made final preparations, Nathan found Valara in the ship's observation deck, watching Earth rotate below them. Her glow reflected off the reinforced glass, creating a halo of shifting colors. Having second thoughts, he asked, though through their connection, he already knew the answer. "About the mission?" "No." She turned to face him, all 4 eyes bright with emotion. "About us? About what this means for both our peoples? Those thoughts are complex." Nathan moved closer, feeling the resonance between them strengthen. "The Collective thinks they're preserving something pure, but they're wrong. The universe doesn't work that way. Life adapts, changes, grows stronger through connection. Like us?" Her hand found his again, and their consciousness merged more fully. In their shared mental space, there was no hierarchy, no primitive or advanced, just 2 beings who had found something extraordinary in each other. "Like us," he agreed. "Whatever happens today, we've already proven them wrong. Human and Stellaris, working together, becoming something new." A soft chime interrupted them. They were approaching the jump point. Soon they would confront the Shadow Collective, armed with nothing but an obsolete ship, their unique connection, and the element of surprise. "They'll never expect a direct assault," Valara said as they headed for the bridge. "Their sensors will be looking for quantum signatures, advanced weapons. Not a rebuilt Earth vessel running on fusion power and determination." Nathan took his place at the helm, feeling the ship's primitive but reliable systems respond to his commands. "Ready to make history?" Valara asked, her glow brightening as she channeled her power through their connection. Together, they could do what neither could alone, human intuition guiding Stellaris energy through technology too simple to be corrupted. Nathan engaged the drive, and the Intrepid leaped toward destiny. As Earth vanished behind them, he felt the rightness of this moment. They were no longer just a human soldier and an alien princess. They were pioneers of a new age, proof that the greatest strength came not from isolation, but from the courage to reach across the void and connect. The Shadow Collective awaited them, but they faced it together. And in that togetherness, they had already achieved something far more powerful than technological superiority or genetic purity. They had found love among the stars, bridging the gap between worlds not through force or fear, but through understanding and acceptance. Whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them as one, a living testament to the truth that the heart knows no boundaries, not even those between the stars. The fate of 2 civilizations now rested in their hands, but as the Intrepid carried them toward their destiny, neither Nathan or Valara felt afraid. They had something the Shadow Collective could never understand, the power of 2 worlds united, not by politics or technology, but by the most primitive and most advanced force in the universe, love itself.